More and more children are out of school, but parents don't want math learning to stop. They're turning to Mathnasium at Home. Real-time math instruction tailored to your child's exact educational needs. It's the same face-to-face live instruction used in our centers for over 15 years, now on a computer. Your child can keep their math skills sharp, catch up, or soar ahead, from home or anywhere with an internet connection. To learn if Mathnasium at Home is right for your child, visit mathnasium.com/at-home. Mathnasium at Home, changing lives through math.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Mathnasium Schoolhouse. I am John, the AVP of Education and Training for Mathnasium, and today I'm going to read your mind. And I'll bet you weren't expecting me to say that. But if you saw the title of today's lesson, then you probably got a little bit of a sneak peek that we're going to look at something a little bit interesting and fun. And when you come to Mathnasium, not only do we work with you on stuff that you need to work on and practice, but we like to have fun with math too. But even more importantly than that, we like to talk about the math behind some of the things that you may experience in real life, or some of the fun kind of math tricks and stuff that you may encounter. So, what do we need to know how to do today? Well, one, I have on your screen a circle with the numbers from 1 through 12. So if you're on a computer or a tablet or a phone, then you'll be able to follow along with me. And what I'm going to ask you to do essentially is to take and point at numbers, and I'm going to give you some directions. And if you can follow those directions, you're in good shape. I also provided a hard copy worksheet that's in the post. So if you have that in front of you, you can follow along, and that's going to be a little bit different because we're going to get to a point where I may take some numbers away and you're going to have to cross them out. It's going to be a little bit different than what you see on the screen, but what I would encourage is that you follow along on the screen. Okay, that's going to make it easier, and that's going to allow me to gather all the information from all of you out there in the world as to give me what I need in order to tell you exactly where you are at all times, okay? And it's going to take some counting, and it's going to take some basic addition in the end in order to understand what happened here. So, like I said, I'm going to give you a moment to kind of get it all together, make sure that you're close enough that you can follow along with me. I will go over a couple examples before we get into it and before we start, so that you know exactly what it is I would like you to do. And at that point, we will kind of go through this fun thing. So the way this is going to work, and what you see here is a circle, certainly, with the numbers from 1 through 12. And it's not a clock, but certainly it looks a lot like a wall clock in that sense. And what I'm going to ask you to do is spell out some words. And as you spell them out, I want you to go from number to number. And I want you to go go clockwise around the circle as you do. So as an example, if I asked you to spell the word cat and we started at the number 12, then I would go C-A-T, and I would stop on the 3. And if you're using your finger, you would keep your finger on 3. It's really important that wherever you stop, you keep your finger or your pencil or whatever it is that you're pointing with on that spot, because then what you're going to do next is going to start at that place. Okay, let's do that again. So let's say I wanted to spell, I asked you to spell the word camera. And we were starting at the 12. So C-A-M-E-R-A, I would end on the 6. And like I said, if you're using your finger to trace along with me, then you would stop on the 6 and you would keep your finger there. Seems easy enough. Now, as always with Mathnasium Schoolhouse, I hope you're introducing yourselves, and I like to see who's joining me today. If you are at a Mathnasium Center or a Mathnasium student, what Mathnasium are you from? If you're not, I hope you're enjoying your time in the sessions with us and gives you an idea of some of the fun ways we like to talk about math and just have fun with it too. So and introduce yourself. But the important thing is if you don't want me to cheat, then as you're going through this activity, you have to keep it to yourself. Because I can see your comments, and if you want me to be able to read your mind, then if you're telling me where you are, then I'm going to be able to cheat. So I would say keep these all to yourself until we get to the end, and we can see if I get it right. And plus, if you are tracing with your finger on the screen, then you need to be focused on that, and you're probably not typing in the comments anyway. So with all of that said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Here's a nice fresh blank one, and what I've done is I've written all the words to the right-hand side in case you're really young and maybe you need a little bit of help. But what I want everybody to do is place your finger on the number 12. Okay, and that's where we're all going to start. And what I would like you to do is pick any number from 1 through 12. It's your choice. And I want you to spell that word. So spell that number and go number to number clockwise, starting at 12. You can start now. So remember, in case you missed it, we started at 12. You picked a number from 1 to 12, and you spelled that word counting number to number clockwise around that circle. And remember, wherever you stop, keep your finger there and don't move it. Now, underneath your finger is a number. I want you to start at that number and spell that number and keep going in the same direction. If you can keep going in the circle as many times as you need to, so don't stop at 12. Whatever number is underneath your finger, spell that number now. Interesting. I'm already starting to get a sense of all of your numbers and where you might be. Okay. So once again, all of you have a number that's underneath your finger or whatever it is you're pointing at this with. I want you to do it again. So whatever number is underneath your finger, spell it out, go number to number around the outside, and spell out your word and keep your finger wherever you stop. Okay. All right, so I'm starting to get even deeper sense of where you may be, and I bet you don't think that I do, but I do. But I need a little bit more information in order for me to finish it, okay? But I do know several things. I do know that you're not on the 2, the 4, the 8, or the 12. I can sense that you're not. Okay. All right, so I want you to do this one last time. All of you have your finger on a number. I want you to spell that word number to number and skip over anything that I erased. If you were using the worksheet, you could cross out those numbers that I just erased. So that was 2, 4, 8, and 12, and skip over those. So whatever number your finger is on, spell that one last time and keep your finger there. So I know you're not on the 3, the 5, or the 10. And remember that all of you had a choice, and all of you could have chosen any number from 1 to 12 to start. I didn't force you to do anything. You could have chosen any number from 1 to 12. So all of you were slightly different in that regard. So I had no possible way of knowing where you started. It was your choice. And you all ended up in a different place. But what I can tell you definitively is that you are all on the 6. And I promise you that if you follow the directions and spelled everything correctly, that you absolutely, positively, mathematically were on the 6. Okay? And what I would like is for you, after you get done, as kind of your cool thing to work on over the weekend, will be to practice this and to show it to somebody else. Because that's what's really fun is maybe you never would have thought that you could go through all those steps and everybody would end up in the same place, but it's absolutely true. You do. But it's also really important, and again, like I mentioned earlier at Mathnasium, what's really important to us is that when people say there's math all around you, it's true. And there's a lot of math in this. And it's actually math that you learn at a very young age. And we always want to make sure that you understand the math behind these cool tricks and magic and stuff. So what I'd like to do is to show you the math behind this, and it's just a few steps. So this way, when you show it to somebody else, and you can trick them, but then you can show them the math behind it, and then they'll really be amazed at the math that you know. So I'm going to show it to you in a different way, and I kind of wrote it, I needed enough room, so some of the words are written to the side and some are on the inside, but I wanted to write the word form of each of those numbers next to the number themselves. And I did that for a reason, and I color-coded it for a reason, and I see now that you can't see the 6. So let me rewrite that on the inside. Now I want to walk you back through everything that I did, or everything that I asked you to do. So the first thing I asked everybody to do was start at the 12 and choose a number, any number from 1 to 12, and spell it out. Now what you'll notice are the numbers that are in red are all 3-letter words. Okay, so let's say I chose 1, and I spell it out. O-N-E, that would put me on the 3. Well, it doesn't matter. I could have chosen 1, 2, 6, or 10, and I would have ended up on the 3 because they're all 3-letter words. The numbers the words that are in blue are 4-letter words. So if I would have chosen any of those, or you chose any of those, let's say I chose 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a 4-letter word. It puts me on the 4. So hopefully you get the pattern here. The green are 5-letter words. Those would have put me on the 5, or you on the 5. And the orange are 6-letter words, and those would have put me on the 6. So what that means is even though when we started this and I gave you an option and you could have chosen anything you wanted, every single one of you after the first turn would have been on a 3, 4, 5, or 6. And that's where this turns into a trick, is because you think the more steps that you do, the harder it would be for me to figure out where you are, when actually you'll start to see that the more steps we did, the fewer options there were, which is really cool. So after the first step, every single one of you was on the 3, the 4, the 5, or the 6. Okay. The second thing I asked you to do was take whatever number was underneath your finger and spell that out. Okay. So let's say I was on the 3. Well, 3 is a 5-letter word, and 3 plus 5 is 8. So that means I would have been on the 8, or you would have been on the 8. If you were on the 4, 4 is a 4-letter word. So when you spell that out, again, you would have been on the 8. Five is a 4-letter word. So if you were on the 5 and you spelled that out, you would have been on the 9. And 6 is a 3-letter word. So if you were on the 6, you also would have been on the 9. So what does that mean? It means that after the second time through, every single one of you, if you followed directions and you spelled everything correctly, every one of you would have been on either the 8 or the 9. And like I mentioned, the more times we did this, the fewer places you possibly could have been. So now we're all on the 8 or the 9. I ask you to do it for a third time. And this is the math, it's not hard. It's a little bit different. And if you're comfortable with a clock, then this is normal. I also, several weeks ago, did a lesson on modular arithmetic that you might want to check out that gets into the math and how this works also. But if I'm on the 8, okay, if I was on the 8 and I asked you to spell out 8, starting at 8, 8 plus 5 is 13. Okay, well, there's no 13 here, but it's just like a clock. I go past 12, and that actually puts me at 1. Okay, so if I was at 8 and I spelled it out, I ended up at 1. If I were on 9, 9 is a 4-letter word. 9 plus 4 equals 13. And again, you would have been on the 1. So what that means is after the third time I asked you to do this, every single one of you was on the 1. Mathematically, that has to be true. If we did everything correctly, started at the right place, spelled everything out correctly, every one of you at that point would have been on the 1. So this is where kind of, magic tricks, sometimes they seem like they're really complicated, but they're really great performers. And I'm not a magician. I did the best I could. But the important thing to know is that from this point forward, I knew where all of you had to be, and the rest of it was just extra. So after that third time, what I did was I started taking numbers away. So I took away the 2, the 4, the 8, and the 12. Which is safe because I knew all of you were on 1 anyway. I could have taken away anything that I wanted. And every single one of you were on the 1 at that point. And actually, I could have stopped at that point and ended it all there. So I took those things away. Then I asked you to spell whatever was under your finger one more time. Well, so you all were on the 1. I took away the 2. And I took away the 4. So when you spelled out O-N-E, you had to be on the 6. Then from that point, it was all just extra stuff. I knew you were all on the 6. I went ahead and I started crossing out the 3, the 5, and the 10. I could have crossed out anything else other than the 6 that I wanted. Then I reminded you all that you could have picked whatever you wanted to start. And you thought there was like all these weird options out there and I could be wherever. And then I told you that you had to be on the 6. And that's the way it works. And it's something that's worth practicing because it ends up being an exercise in probability. And the way that this was done, it guaranteed that you had to all be on the same number. And the only way this works in the end is if you are all in the same place. So with a little bit of counting and just kind of spelling out some words and some basic addition facts, you have this kind of cool trick that you can show other people. But like I said, I think it's really important for you to also practice the math behind it. Now, what's really interesting also as a follow-up is because when you join me for Schoolhouse, I really like to pass along things for you to look at later, because it's important to kind of study the history of math, or like these people that made contributions or other things that are like what we talked about today. And so this is something that if you want to check out something later, you should. Because what we did today, there are so many examples of stuff that's related to this. There are card tricks, there are other number tricks that you can do, and it's all based upon the same principle. So the YouTube videos, I hope if you watch YouTube videos or watch videos that you go back and rewatch this one so you can practice with me. But there are videos that get into what we did today. There are videos that get into all these other kind of cool little tricks. And watch them and try them, but then do some research to see what the math is behind it. Because I just think it's really great to be able to talk about things like that. So I appreciate all of you joining me. Mathnasium, we practice the math that your child, what it is that you need to work on. But we really do like to have fun and have a lot of enjoyment with math and just explore things, because math is all around us and it explains everything in our world. And I appreciate, you kind of trying this out with me, and I hope you do it again. I hope you join me again. I hope you join all of our really great Mathnasium teachers. We normally join you on Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific. Next week, we will actually be starting on Wednesday. I will be back with you on Wednesday, which I'm really excited about. If you've joined me for any of my mental math sessions, I will be back on Wednesday to do mental math with you. It's something that we have a lot of fun with, and it will stretch your brain. I hope all of you have an awesome weekend. Show everyone some math and enjoy it, and stay safe out there. Thanks for joining me. Bye.
It's afternoons that seem to be the most hectic for us, so it was much more convenient when we found Mathnasium at home.
All right, so how do we do half of 5? I think one of the best things about at home is that it really feels like you're almost at home with the student in their house teaching them.
I'm in my comfort zone.
You can just ask for help and the instructor will come right to you.
With Mathnasium at home, I know that they're getting the help that they need.
Awesome, great job.
Mathnasium, changing lives through math.